Shabbat Shalom. So today we are 12 days out from the Jewish holiday of Shavuot, or you could say it's the 37th day of the Omer. Shavuot is the holiday in which the Jewish people celebrate the giving of the Torah and all the traditions and laws that come with it. With that in mind, I want to tell you one of my favorite stories from the Midrash that Rabbi Lauren shared with me. When the Jewish people were waiting for God to give them the Torah, God made a deal with them. God told the Israelites they could have the Torah if they brought God some good guarantors. The Jewish people asked if their ancestors would be good guarantors, and God said no. Then they asked if the prophets like Elijah and Abraham were good guarantors, and once again, God said no. Finally, the Israelites offered up their children as their guarantors, and as the story says, God responded, "They are certainly good guarantors. For their sake, I give the Torah to you." When God says the children are our guarantors, God means that the children are the future. And when I hear that story, I believe that God is referencing me, because I was once one of those children. Here at SAJ, I have been given the gift of Torah learning, Torah teaching, and Torah values and traditions. And here I have grown from being a student of the Torah to a teacher of the Torah. I could tell so many stories about what it has been like to grow up at SAJ, but I think in the 13 years my family has come here, there are 4 stories that remind me of the love I have for this place. When I first came to SAJ, our educational director was the recently ordained Rabbi Gidon Isaacs. He welcomed me to the SAJ community with open arms. If it was not Shabbat, I might take out my phone right now and show you the video of 6-year-old me in my very first year here with some other kids you might recognize as former Macomb students. We're standing in the social hall and we're dancing to the song "This Pretty Planet" by Tom Chapin. And Gidon is up there, dancing right alongside me with the same amount of gusto as any of us kids. You can see in the video how happy I am and how much joy dancing with my friends to some of my favorite SAJ songs brought me. I was only 6 years old and I had crippling stage fright, but being up there with Gidon and so many of my SAJ friends allowed me to step out of my shell. The next story comes from my bat mitzvah, March 24th, 2018. During the weeks and months before my big day, I had purchased fabric for my talit and spent a few sessions with Rabbi Lauren tying up my tzitzit. But on the day my bat mitzvah came and it was time for me to carry the Torah around the sanctuary like we just did, I realized that my talit and my tzitzit might have been a bit too long. The tzitzit were practically dragging on the floor, and in my heels, I was terrified that I might trip and drop the Torah, which, 40 days of fasting, don't know if I want that. It turns out, though, that someone was watching and someone noticed my nervousness. Rather than taking it off or just letting me hope for the best, the wonderful Jordan Woke, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, often to switch talitot with me, and I wore his talit as I finished my aliyahs. That was a truly memorable moment for me throughout all of the fanfare and excitement that was my bat mitzvah. I will forever remember the kindness he gave me that day, and if I had not been sure before, I knew then how much I was seen and loved at SAJ. After my bat mitzvah, I officially became an SAJ teen. Since then, I've spent time volunteering, being an assistant teacher with SAJ's educational directors, and founded SAJ's chapter of BBYO with my dear friends Sylvia and Francesca, who are here today. But one of my most distinct and happy memories of being an SAJ teen comes from our teen trip to Portland. I guess I wrote this last month, but 2 months ago now. Over the weekend, we had many opportunities to bond, whether we were going on a hike or roller skating or exploring downtown Portland. On our very first day in Oregon, our group went to Kindness Farms. Kindness Farms is a queer and immigrant-led farm seeking to provide healthy produce for Portland's poor and homeless population. We were tasked with digging out the invasive blackberry roots, and some of my friends and I ended up working in the same general area. As we began to dig out the weeds, we realized that these blackberry roots were not just singular blackberry roots. They were one big root, which I guess is some sort of metaphor for connectedness and happiness, but in that case, not really. We ended up working together and spilling dirt all over each other, just trying to get the root out, which ultimately, as Sid can probably attest, was not a success. But I have definitely commemorated that day with a bunch of silly photos. While this was one of my favorite memories and bonding moments from the trip, we were also lucky enough to spend some time with the folks from Outside the Frame. An organization dedicated to training Portland's homeless and marginalized youth to direct and create their own short films. We were able to sit down and spend some time with these filmmakers, and after hearing their stories and watching the films they had created, it really had a serious emotional impact on me. The experiences we had and the stories we heard were unlike anything I'd experienced or heard before, and bringing them home with me has been more meaningful than I can really explain in words. This trip did exactly what it intended to do for me, and I know that I'll carry what I've learned into my life in college, but also just like wherever I go. My final story comes from just a few months ago working as an assistant teacher in the K-1 classroom. Hi, guys. Working in the kindergarten and first grade classroom at Macomb has truly been the best part of SAJ for me. I began working in K-1 with our beloved Ya'ara when I was in my freshman year of high school as a teen assistant, and now I'm finishing out my senior year as her assistant teacher. I feel so incredibly lucky to be the first teen assistant hired as a teacher, and I'm so grateful to SAJ for putting me on the path to my goal of becoming a full-time teacher. About 2 months ago, the Pella teacher, Pella is the class for kids who are not quite Macomb age, where it's like a music time. And that day, the Pella teacher was absent, and the parents were sitting in the room struggling to figure out what to do with their kids because there wasn't any music. So we invited them to join our music class with the kindergarten through third graders. As we all squeezed ourselves onto the tiny carpet and began to sing, I found myself looking around the circle of kids. I realized that I had a personal connection with almost every student in the room. Some of them had been my students for 3 years, and others, well, they'd been my students before COVID, through COVID, and to this day. And others were my students now. Some I had babysat for, and others I'd bonded with through playing in the Kaplan Lounge during Kiddush. As the music class continued, slowly, more and more of the children gravitated towards me. And by the end of the session, there was one on my lap, one on either side, one leaning on my back, and another sitting in front of me holding my hand. I had never, ever felt more loved in my life. SAJ is one of, if not the most important place in my life. I have truly grown up here. My family joined when I was kindergarten. I was 5 years old, and I'm sure we can all say joining was a decision we'd never regret. My mom, Barbara, who most of you know, leads a weekly meditation group, attends almost every Saturday service, and has volunteered on various committees over the years. At age 13, she chose not to have a bat mitzvah, but just last year, with a group of so many of her friends, she was finally able to do so. Because of SAJ, my father, Bill, taught himself how to read Hebrew. And while he doesn't attend services as much as we'd like, watching him read effortlessly from the Siddur makes me so proud. At SAJ, I was able to learn how to read Hebrew and have a bat mitzvah, just like both of my parents. And SAJ has truly created a foundational Jewish experience for me that I wouldn't change for the world. SAJ makes me proud to be a Jew and unashamed to share that side of me with the world around. Every Saturday, I watch my students find joy in Judaism just as I do. I've watched them teach younger siblings the songs we sing during music and teach their friends all about the new Hebrew words they've learned. I've heard them excitedly tell their fellow students that they're Jewish, not remembering that everyone else in the room is too. But their pride will always bring a smile to my face. And that's it. That's the proof for me. While I may be graduating and leaving my home for the time being, I know one thing for sure. The words of this Midrash story are true. The children of SAJ will truly be its guarantors. Shabbat Shalom.